So hello everyone. Welcome to Sir C.R. Reddy College of Engineering Online Education. So in the last class, we have seen three important concepts. That is, first one is optimal solution for a given power system, which consisting of k thermal power plants by considering losses. Here, what we observe in this is when compared to the problem one, here one extra parameter came into the picture, that is PL. So with that, in the final condition, we got one more parameter, that is a penalty factor. And the second one is loss coefficients. Loss coefficients is also called as B coefficients. We have seen how to represent loss coefficients, and it depends upon what are parameters. So we have seen in the last class. And finally, we have seen the importance or the significance of the penalty factor. And already explained by taking a practical example, that is a market and a local shop. Now, in this class, we will see two concepts. Those are, first one is derivation for loss function, as I already told you in the last class. And the second one is system constraints. So already during the input and output characteristics, I have given idea about the system constraints. So in this class, we will see some more system constraints. So with these two topics, we are going to complete our first unit theoretically. So at the end, I will ask one simple question. So first, before going to the third topic, so first let us try to complete our first two topics. See, repeatedly our faculty are repeating that please strictly follow timings. But still, so many people are coming. So first we will see the expression for loss function. So in the last class, we have seen PL is a function of real power generations. The reason for this is when the transmission losses are increases, that means it is also comes under a demand. When the demand is increases, we need to increase the generation capacity. When there is an increase in the generation capacity, we have to increase the fuel cost also. So when we are increasing the fuel cost, automatically that will be reflected in the incremental fuel cost. So that's why the transmission line loss will be expressed in terms of generating capacity. And coming to the loss coefficients, PL is nothing but a function of loss coefficients, and these are depends upon interconnector lines. When the interconnect lines are more, loss coefficients are also more. So that loss are also more. So in the last class, we have seen by taking K equals to 2. K equals to 2 means we have considered 2 power plants. And similarly, we have considered 3 power plants also. When we are taking 2 power plants, we got the loss coefficients are nothing but 4 coefficients. And similarly, for 3 plants, we got 9 coefficients. So simply, when you are considering K power plant, the loss coefficients are nothing but K square. So in this, we use Cron's method. So this name was given by the scientist named Gabriel Cron. So he did a lot of research on reduction technique. So out of those, we are using one method, that is for this derivation. So according to this reduction method, assuming a total system into an equivalent system with a single load means, by using this method, whatever the power system is there, we are going to consider the total power system into an equivalent system, which is having very less number of inputs, and coming to the output is nothing but only one output. Output means here load only. We are taking only less number of input side. Similarly, we are taking only one load. So, and for this, we have to assume some of the parameters. Those are present in this slide. Basically, why we need to assume some parameters, the basic fundamental point here it is, why we need to assume several assumptions is in order to minimize the length of the derivation, or we can say to simplify the derivation. So after completion of the first unit, I will place this PPT in our WhatsApp group so that easily you can go through that WhatsApp group. Okay. Let us consider this figure. In this figure, I will explain a total procedure. Means whatever the procedure we are going to follow in the coming slides, in the same figure itself, I will explain what we need to do from these figures. And the remaining figures, in the remaining steps, we will see a mathematical steps. Here we are considering one transmission network which has two generating sources and one load. Here the main objective is to find out the power loss. And we know that the basic formula for power loss is nothing but 3 into I square into R for three phase. So the main objective here it is, we need to find out current first. When we are able to find out the current, then automatically we can find the power loss. So that's why how we can find out in this one is by using superposition theorem. So according to this theorem, we apply inputs individually. Then again, we will see the response. And finally, we apply all the inputs. Again, we will see the response. And these two responses must be same. For example, let's consider here, figure 1 is there. So in this one, we are taking two inputs, input 1 and input 2. And this is nothing but a transmission network which consisting of so many transmission lines. And coming to the output, we are having only one load. This is nothing but figure 1. And what we will do is, out of the n number of transmission lines, we are taking only one line as a consideration. That is nothing but kth line. So in this kth line, we need to find out the current. So once we are able to find out the current in the kth line, then automatically we can find the power loss in the kth line. But before going to find out the power loss, we must find out the current. So how to find out the current when we are having two sources? By using superposition theorem. So according to superposition theorem, in this figure, we are applying only first source now itself. We are not operating your second source. Then the current which is drawn from your source 1 is I1. And similarly, the current which is flows through your kth line is IK1, and the load is remains same. In all the conditions, we are assuming your load current is constant. So in the case 1, what we are doing, we are activating only source 1. We are not activating your source 2. So in this case, the current which is drawn from your source 1 is I1. The current which is flows through your kth transmission lane is IK1. Similarly, in the next figure, in this case, we are operating second source. We are not activating our first source. So in this case, the current which is drawn from your second source is I2, and the current which is flows through our kth transmission line is IK2, and the load is remains constant. So these two are nothing but step 1 and the step 2. And coming to the last one, in this case, we are operating two sources at a time. Means we need to activate source 1. Similarly, we need to activate source 2 also. So in this case, I1 and I2 are nothing but the corresponding currents which are draws from source 1 and source 2. And the current which is flows through your kth transmission line is represented by IK. Means what we conclude is, this IK is nothing but the sum of IK1 and IK2. Because in this figure, we are getting IK1 by operating only source 1. And in this figure, this IK2 is nothing but the current flows through this kth transmission line by operating the second source. But in the last figure, how we got IK? This IK is nothing but the current flows through the kth line by operating two sources at a time. So that's why according to superposition theorem, what we can say is, this IK is nothing but the summation of IK1 and IK2. Okay, just I will give you just a fraction of time. Meanwhile, just everyone just observe all the diagrams. So meanwhile, I will add your friends. Okay, so this figure is nothing but when we are considering only source 1. This figure is nothing but when we are considering only source 2. And the last figure is nothing but when we are taking two sources at a time. Similarly, IK1 is nothing but the current flows through the kth line when source 1 is activating. Similarly, IK2 is the current which is flows through the kth line when source 2 is activating alone. And in the last case, IK is nothing but the current flows through the kth line when two sources are activating. So this is nothing but according to superposition theorem. And similarly, when you observe here I1 and I2, these two currents are nothing but I1 is nothing but the current drawn from the source 1 and I2 is nothing but current drawn from source 2. But practically, what we can observe here is there will be some displacement between the I2 and I1 with respect to the reference. So when you consider the first phasor diagram, the phasor difference between I1 and the reference is sigma 1. Similarly, when you are considering I2 and the reference is sigma 2. When you are considering in between I1 and I2, the phasor difference between I1 and I2 is sigma 2 minus sigma 1. This is very, very important in the coming derivation. So in order to find out this Ik, this is not algebraic summation of Ik1 and Ik2. This is nothing but vector summation of Ik1 and Ik2. Why we are saying vector summation? Because this I1 and I2 are not having same phasor difference. I1 is present at an angle of sigma 1, whereas I2 is present at an angle of sigma 2. So that's why we can say Ik is nothing but vector summation of Ik1 and Ik2. So how we can do the vector summation is by using parallelogram law. And already we have learned how to apply the parallelogram law in our intermediate level. So these two are nothing but our input currents I1 and I2. Ik is nothing but resultant current. So how to find out the resultant current by applying the parallelogram? That is nothing but P square plus Q square plus 2PQ cos theta, where theta is nothing but the angle in between I1 and I2. Of course, in the coming slides, we are going to see each and everything mathematically. So whatever the procedure I already told you, the same procedure now we will follow. So first step is nothing but consider source 1 only. When you are considering the source 1, find out the current through the kth transmission line. That is Ik1. So when we are considering the source 1, the current through the kth line is Ik1. And along with the current, we need to find out one more factor, that is current distribution factor. And how we can define this distribution factor is, this is nothing but the ratio of Ik1 by IL. So what it represents, Ik1 is nothing but the current flows through the kth line, whereas IL is nothing but the current flows through the load side. Means how much current is distributing to the kth transmission line out of the total load current is nothing but current distribution factor, and it is represented by Nk1. Similarly, coming to the step 2, in the step 1, we just applied only source 1. And in the step 2, we are going to apply source 2 alone. So when you are considering the source 2, the corresponding current is Ik2, and the corresponding current distribution factor is Nk2 is equals to Ik2 divided by IL. So these two are nothing but the current in the kth line, similarly current distribution factors in the step 1 and step 2. And coming to the next step is, we need to consider both the sources at a time. That means step 1 at the same time step 2. So when you are considering the step 1 and step 2, the current in the kth line is nothing but the summation of the Ik1 and Ik2. That is represented by total current, that is given by Ik1 plus Ik2. And we know from the current distribution factors, we can write here Nk1 is equals to Ik1 divided by I1. Similarly, we can write here Nk2 is equals to Ik2 divided by I2. Just to try to substitute these two in Ik form. Then we will get Ik is equals to Nk1 into I1 plus Nk2 into I2. So already I told you, these I1 and I2 currents are drawn from source 1 and source 2, which are displaced by some phase angles. Those are nothing but sigma 1 with respect to the reference in the case of I1. Similarly, sigma 2 in case of I2 with respect to the reference. So what we are going to see is, directly we cannot add these two things. So that's why we'll go for vector summation. Means how we can represent I1 and I2 is, I1 which is present at an angle of sigma 1. Similarly, I2 which is present at an angle of sigma 2. Try to substitute this I1 and I2 in total current. That is, IK equals to NK1 into I1 at an angle of sigma 1 plus NK2 into I2 at an angle of sigma 2. What we are doing in this derivation is just simply we need to find out the power loss. How we can find the power loss? The basic formula for power loss is 3 into I square R in case of three phase, where I is nothing but current flow through the transmission line. So that's why our main objective in this derivation is we need to find out the current in the kth transmission line. So how we can find that current is by using superposition theorem. So this is nothing but our total current NK1 I1 at an angle of sigma 1 plus NK2 I2 at an angle of sigma 2. And coming to the phasor difference between I1 and I2 is already explained in the phasor diagram, that is sigma 2 minus sigma 1. So in this figure already explained, these two currents are nothing but present at sigma 1 and sigma 2 with respect to the reference. Whereas when you are considering the summation of I1 and I2 vectorially, IK is nothing but resultant current, and the phasor difference between IK with respect to reference is sigma 2 minus sigma 1. Okay, that we are going to represent see in these coming slides. Okay, so this is nothing but the phase difference between I1 and I2 is sigma 2 minus sigma 1. So when you substitute here IK square from the parallelogram law, already I told you the formula is P square plus Q square plus 2P cube cos theta. Here P is nothing but NK1 I1 and Q is nothing but NK2 I2, and the theta is nothing but the difference, the phasor difference between I1 and I2. So what is the phasor difference between I1 and I2? That is sigma 2 minus sigma 1. So when you apply the parallelogram law from our fundamentals, we can write IK square is equals to NK1 I1 whole square plus NK2 I2 whole square plus 2 into NK1 I1 into NK2 I2 cos of the phasor difference between I1 and I2, which is given by sigma 2 minus sigma 1. So this is nothing but the total current from the parallelogram law. And one more thing is I1 and I2 we can represent in terms of real power and voltages also. Basically we have a power formula that is P equals to root 3 VL cos phi in terms of three phase. So from that easily we can write I1, and it is given by Pg1 divided by root 3 into V1 into power factor 1. Similarly we can write I2, which is given by Pg2 divided by root 3 into V2 into power factor 2. And let us try to substitute these I1 and I2 in this total current. So when you are substituting, the total current, the power loss is nothing but 3 into I square R. So try to substitute the total current IK in this form. So finally you will get this equation. So that is last step. But still we can represent the same equation like this also. So here just observe this equation. PL is equals to in terms of Pg1 and in terms of some other parameters, plus second term is in terms of Pg2 and other parameters. Third one is in terms of Pg1 and Pg2 and in other parameters. So what we can write, or how we can write PL is in terms of loss coefficients. Means, for example, when you are considering the first parameter other than Pg1 square, whatever the term is there which is other than Pg1 square, the term is called as loss coefficient and it is represented by B11. Similarly, coming to the second term other than Pg2 square, whatever the term is there, the term is called as BT2. Similarly, in the third term, whatever the term is there other than 2 into Pg1 and Pg2, the remaining term is nothing but, how we can represent, B12. So whatever the constants are there, we are getting in the PL, those constants are represented with loss coefficients. So here, what is the value of B11? So B11 is nothing but other than Pg1 square. Similarly, In this one, what is the value of B22 other than P02 square? Similarly, in this one, what is the value of B12 other than PG1 and PG2? So like this, we can write B11, B22, similarly B12. So this is in case when we are taking only 2 power plants. For example, when we are taking 3 power plants, how we can represent our loss function, that is given by sigma m equals to 1 to 3, sigma n equals to 1 to 3 into Pm, Bm and Pn. If we expand this equation, already we have seen in the last class, that is how many coefficients we will get here. When we are taking k equals to 2, we will get 4 coefficients. But when we are taking 3 coefficients, how many loss coefficients we will get here? 9 coefficients. But practically we can say B12 is equals to B21 and B23 equals to B32 and B31 is equals to B13. So that's why easily we can simplify that expression from 9 coefficients to 6 coefficients. So this is nothing but the derivation of the loss coefficients. This derivation is very, very easy. The fundamental point is we need to find out the power loss. The basic formula for the power loss is nothing but 3 into I square into R. Here we need to find out the I. So how we can find out the I when we are considering 2 different sources? By using superposition theorem. First, find out current in the transmission line by operating only one source. Similarly, find out current by operating the second source. Then just add these 2 currents, then you will get the total current. Okay. So this is nothing but the derivation of the loss coefficients. And coming to the second topic, that is nothing but constraint. So I have already explained a real power constraint in input and output characteristics. Along with that real power constraint, we will see some more constraints are also there in our power system. So before going to take a technically, let me take a very simple example. This example most often happens in recent times, because of the online education, because everything online education is going on. So that's why I'm taking this example. In this example, there will be a conversation between a father and his son. Son is asking about laptop and his father is also says, okay, go on buy. But here, 2 cases we need to consider. First one is, for example, if that father says, I will give you only 30,000 rupees. Try to understand very carefully. So once you understand this life example, then automatically you can understand what is meant by power system constraints. Okay. So in this example, if the father says, I will give you only 30,000 rupees in order to buy your laptop. So exactly you need to buy laptop by spending an exactly 30,000 rupees. That is nothing but first case. So in the first case, your laptop cost must be equal to 30,000 rupees. That is case 1. Coming to the second case, if that father say, go and check the laptop in between 25,000 to 35,000. Means in this case, your laptop cost may be in between 25,000 to 35,000 means it may be 25,000 or it may be at 28,000 or it may be equals to 30,000 or it may be equals to 33,000 means the laptop cost in the second case is, it varies in between 25,000 to 30,000. It depends upon your conditions. Understanding everybody? So in between these 2 only, you need to buy a laptop. So this is a constraint. For example, when you are considering the case 1, here you need to buy a laptop by spending an exactly 30,000 rupees. So this is a condition. What is that condition? Exactly we need to spend 30,000 rupees in order to buy a laptop. That is condition. Similarly, in the second case, what's that condition? We need to buy a laptop in between 25,000 to 30,000. This is also one of the conditions. But what is the difference between these 2 conditions? When you are considering the case 1, in this one, the condition is nothing but equality condition. In this one, the condition is nothing but a equality condition. So that's why we are using here equal symbol. In this case, laptop cost must be equals to 30,000. But coming to the second case, this is not a equality constraint. This is inequality constraint, or we can say boundary constraint. Why we are saying boundaries? So in order to buy a laptop cost is having some boundaries. That is, lower boundary is 25,000 rupees and upper boundary is 35,000 rupees. So in between 25,000 to 30,000 you can spend. Okay. So that's why mainly our constraints will be dividing into two types. Those are nothing but equality constraint and second one is inequality constraint. So what we observe in this example is equality constraint means it is nothing but fixed. Coming to the inequality constraint means it is nothing but variable cost in this example. Okay, or inequality constraint will have some boundaries. This is nothing but our life constraint. Similarly, in this we have two constraints are there already explained, that is equality constraint and inequality constraint. Definitely we must respect these two constraints because these two constraints are given by our father. So that's why we need to obey those constraints. And let us try to understand the second example in detail. So in the second one, whatever the father is there, he limited his budget in between 25,000 rupees to 35,000 rupees. Now tell me, what is the meaning to have that range? Means why is having that range 25,000 rupees to 35,000 rupees? Something reason should be there. Okay, reason should be there for fixing the budget of the cost in between 25,000 rupees to 35,000 rupees. For example, he knows that if that son is going to spend below 25,000 rupees, there would not get a best laptop. At the same time, if you consider the more than 35,000 rupees, he cannot afford. Means before 25,000 rupees, it's not suitable for satisfactory operation. Similarly, for more than 35,000 rupees, father cannot afford. So that's why by considering these two factors, he is setting that so and so particular limits, so and so particular boundaries. So in this example, he says that laptop cost is in between 25,000 to 35,000. Okay. Similarly, our power system also have some parameters. Those will have some constraints. So we need to obey those constraints. Let's see what are the parameters are there in our power system. So these are nothing but system constraints. So again, a system constraints can be dividing into two types. First one is equality constraints and the second one is inequality constraints. So when you see the equality constraints, already we have seen these constraints in the problem 1 and problem 2. Problem 1 means without losses, problem 2 is with losses. Here, P generation must be equals to P demand plus P loss in terms of real power. Similarly, when we are applying the same concept for your reactive power, we can write Q generation is equals to Q demand plus Q loss, where P is nothing but in terms of real power, where Q is nothing but in terms of reactive power. Why we are saying these two constraints comes under equality constraint? We are using here equality means this P generation must be equals to P demand and loss. Similarly, Q generation must be equals to Q demand and Q loss. So that's why these two constraints are nothing but comes under equality constraints. And coming to the inequality constraints, we have some parameters are there. Those parameters are comes under inequality constraints. These are nothing but bounded constraints. So I already explained this one when I was explaining the input and output characteristics. So once, if you see the characteristics, the real power boundaries are PZ minimum and PZ max. So this is nothing but our real power on x-axis. When you are considering the x-axis, we are having two limits are there. That is minimum real power and maximum real power. So these two are nothing but boundaries. So according to inequality constraint, what we conclude is whatever the unit is going to operate, that unit must be operate in between these two limits only. That is PZ minimum at the same time PZ maximum. So on what basis we have to operate our so and so particular limit, so and so particular unit in between these two limits is based upon some parameters. What that parameter is? Thermal characteristics at the same time economy point of view. For example, if you consider this example, if the unit is operated below the PG minimum, that leads to economical problem. And if it operates beyond that PG maximum, that will lead to thermal problem or heat problem. Means we can say that is unstable operation. Similarly, we can write the same boundary limits to reactive power also. That is QG minimum less than or equals to QG less than or equals to QG maximum. So if you operate the unit below the QG minimum, it leads to stability limit of the machine. Similarly, if you operate the unit above the QG maximum, it leads to overheating of the rotor. So already we have learned these topics in your synchronous machines. Okay, like this, we need to restrict our operating conditions. So that's why we must respect those constraints. Okay, when we are operating the generator or we can say units. And next one is voltage or phase angle. As the voltage is directly depends upon the reactive power, the voltage also has its limits. And coming to the phase angle, the normal operating phase angle in our practical transmission line lies in between 30 degrees to 40 degrees for a transient stability region. For example, when you are considering the voltage magnitude, this is nothing but our present voltage magnitude, and it must be present in between VA minimum to VA maximum. Similarly, when you are considering the phase angle constraint, it must be in between delta minimum to delta max. So practically, this delta value varies in between 30 degrees to 40 degrees for the sake of transient stability reasons. So this is about your voltage magnitude and phasor angle. And next one is spare capacity constraints. So clearly in the previous classes, I explained economical load dispatch by taking selection of Indian thema. There we used to take one more extra player. So that player is called as generally substitute. The reason why we are taking the substitute is during abnormal condition, you will join with the team. Similarly, here also during abnormal condition means it may be because of the unexpected load on the system, or it may be because of the sudden tripping of one or more alternators on the system. So there we can utilize the separate capacity. For example, when you are considering the constraint, inequality constraint, PG should be greater than PD plus PL plus PSP. Here PG is nothing but generating capacity, PD is related to the demand, PL is nothing but related to the loss, where PSP is nothing but spare power. So generally in practical system, always we need to maintain a spare power because of these conditions. Because for each and every condition, we need to be ready for operating the units. So that's why in practical power system, always we need to maintain PSP. PSP means here spare power, just like your substitute in your thema. So this is nothing but about spare capacity constraint. And the last one is, before last one, transformer settings. Okay, already we have very much familiar with the auto transformer and normal transformer. For an auto transformer, we have certain limits are there. Means we can vary our auto transformer from minimum voltage to the rated voltage. So that is represented in per unit as 0 less than or equals to T less than or equals to 1. Here 0 is nothing but minimum setting and the 1 is nothing but maximum setting. Similarly, for a 2-winding transformer, how we can represent our constraint is tap setting is in between 0 to K. 0 is nothing but minimum value, whereas K is nothing but maximum value, and this K value is nothing but transformation ratio or turns ratio. So by using these constraints, we can set our transformer tap positions. And similarly, last one is transmission line constraints. The most important point in our power system and in mainly transmission is how much power can be transmitted through the transmission line is decided by its thermal capacity. Thermal capacity is nothing but related to the temperature. So within the limits only, we can transmit the power, and that can be represented as TCI less than or equals to TCI max, where TCI is nothing but maximum loading capacity of the ith line. Means this is nothing but our maximum loading. So beyond this, you should not load your transmission line. Once you load the transmission line beyond the TCI, then automatically there will be a increase in the temperature in your transmission line. So that automatically it leads to anemical or unhealthy operation. So these are nothing but different constraints which are present in our practical power system. So with this, we have completed. Still, some people are coming up at the end of the session also. So with this, we have completed first unit theoretically. So that's why with some happiness, I will tell you one story. Okay, so from that story, I will ask very simple question. So generally, most of the people know about my question. In order to answer my question, it is enough to have some common sense and observation with basics. So when we have the common sense and basics with observation, then automatically you can answer my question. So I will tell you that story. So let's start our friendship story. The story is nothing but related to friends. In this story, two friends are there. So clearly you can see those two friends. That means A and B. So in the first figure, we have only two friends are there, A and B. So one day they met in Yellow Road, which is present in Vijayawada. Accidentally or whatever it is, intentionally or unintentionally, they met one day. Okay, and try to consider this example in normal days, not during lockdown time. Okay, they chat with some time and then they decide to have some cup of tea in Novotel because Novotel is there. So that's why they decide to have some cup of tea. So these two persons are coming to hotel. This is nothing but some part in the story. And coming to the second part, when these two people are coming to the hotel, almost they approaches the hotel. Just before the hotel, this A person saw one more person. That person is C. But here, C is nothing but only intimacy friend to A. He is not a friend to B. So that's why A say to B is just to go in and order a cup of tea. I will join with you within very less time. Okay, understanding everybody. So here, three persons are there, A, B, and C. The first A and B, two persons are coming to hotel. Just before the entrance of the hotel, A person will serve one more person, that is C. At the entrance of the hotel, A says to B, that is, you just go in and order a cup of tea. And I will join with you within a fraction of time. Okay, so this is a story. Now, generally in 5-star hotel or a 3-star hotel, when we order a tea, they will provide raw material like tea decoction, sugar, like that. So instead of providing direct tea. So now in front of B, whatever the person is providing all those things, he just provided each and everything. Means all the raw material is in front of B. Now the time is to apply our common sense for my question. My question here it is, so these are nothing but let us consider raw materials. My question here it is, B will wait for his friend after mixing, or second option is B will wait for his friend without mixing. Here we have only two options are there, that is with mixing and without mixing. Okay, but here the constraint means here condition. Here the condition is tea must be hot. That is the condition. Just try to apply our common sense and think of it, then tell me the answer. So here this is also a constraint problem, but till now we have seen the constraint problem. Here no need to use your Lagrangian function, because instead of applying your Lagrangian function, it is enough to use our common sense. Okay, so that's why you use your common sense and type your answer in our chat box. Very good. Someone is typing that Newton's law of cooling. Very good. But I need an answer with explanation now. One more person is replied that tea will cool down whether he mixes it or not. So here my question is means you have only two options. B will wait for his friend after mixing, or B will wait for his friend without mixing. You have only two options, and the constant here it is T must be hot. Don't think about the other parameters. You need to consider the constant only. Already we have discussed that we need to give respect, lot of respect to our constants. Here the constant in this problem is T must be hot. So that's why think about only T must be hot. In that point of view only, just give me the answer.